Welcome back to Hardcore, guys. I'm Celestina, coming at you from down under. They don't call it that here. I live in Australia. You'd think I'd know what they say. Anyway, Miko, how are you on the other side of the world this week?
Doing well, trying to boost my immune system, as it's kind of a little bit on the edge at the moment. But everything good. How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm excited for today's topic, which we've talked about groups before in the context of the Friends episode, which I think was just such a fun episode. Today we are taking it to larger groups, and we just happen to be using the group slash team I've built in the restaurant world as our example today, because I have real world knowledge of them, and Miko has immense human design knowledge that we were going to directly applicate. I don't know if that's the word. Apply. That's probably the better choice of verbiage to the team at hand, and we're going to explore that a little bit. We came into this thinking that we had the tools and resources to be able to do so, and human design threw us a loop because it's a lot more complicated than we thought it was going to be, as it always is, I feel like. So, what was the rabbit hole you went down this time, Boo Boo?
Well, as Celestina says, what had happened was we covered the Friends episode with a Penta dynamics. However, as soon as a group is becoming larger than 5, it becomes a WA. And this is where Celestina loves to jump in and says, a WA?
What? The what? Yo, when you told me that the other day, I was like, this is such a great opportunity to just be like, what? Throughout the episode. I will try to refrain. I really, really will.
Yeah, but it was so funny to go through that. So we were supposed to record this episode a few days ago, and then I said, Celestina, I went down a rabbit hole. You can't imagine what happened. Because a Penta, for everyone that doesn't know, is a group of
I said,
three
what?
You see the refrain.
Okay, now I'm done.
And the restrain. So the Penta is a group of 3 to 5 people. And there are individuals who are very good in groups of 3 to 5 people. There are individuals who are very good as solopreneurs. And then there are individuals who are very good with one-on-one. And then there are individuals who are very good in large group dynamics. And those large group dynamics start with a group of 3 pentas. A large group can be made out of either 9 plus a leader or anything above that up to 16, because that would be still 3 pentas of 5 people plus 1 leader. So this is how a large group is made up of. And large organizations are then looked at from the WA, and that is also called OC16. So those are 2 terms that are used interchangeably. And BG5 is what we're talking about here today. That is covering the business dynamics. It's called Base Group 5. So it's also covering Penta mainly, but then we also additionally have OC16 or the WA. When I started diving into that, I was really fascinated about how all of that comes together. So when you're in a Penta, in a small group, 3 to 5 people, the Penta only recognizes certain channels. And these channels, if you are watching, I'm going to show on screen what they look like. Here you can see the Penta, and it only recognizes the channels between the throat, the G-center, and the sacral. Everything else that is defined outside of that, the Penta doesn't recognize. So if you don't have any channels in that, then you're highly likely to feel like you're not being seen in a group, in a small group setting. You feel a bit more like an outsider, or you feel like they don't recognize who you are, what you have to bring to the table, things like that. There's more to that than just that. But this is one of the big things that makes the difference between the Penta and the WA or the OC16, because the OC16 recognizes more than just these channels. It actually looks at all 64 gates. However, there are going to be individuals who are recognized as leaders in certain fields, or even as the leader, as the alpha of these 5 groups, 5 pentas. But that is something that is very interesting to note. So a penta will only always recognize these channels, and you see here, if you're watching, that there's a little gap. Ignore that gap. That's just it doesn't mean anything. It should actually be going all the way up to the 15th. If you're looking at the screen, 5 to 15, the channel, the full channel, and also 29 to 46, the full channel. That's kind of how everything started, because Celestina really wanted to cover her restaurant team, and I thought it was an amazing idea. But then we also saw that the team is 11 people. But also another interesting thing, I don't know how you work day to day. Is it broken down into 5 or 6?
Yeah, so I feel like we have a core team. Like, the guys in the kitchen are there almost every day. It's a mix of 4 of them. So there'll be 3 of them there at any given time. But on a Friday and Saturday night, all 4 of the kitchen guys are there. And my front of house people are my core team. So that's L, P, H, and J, and then me. We're not using full names, we're just using letters, which can get a little bit confusing. But no, even on like a busy night, on a Friday, Saturday night, 11 of us are there, which is kind of crazy. 10 or 11, because there's 4 people in the kitchen, a dishwasher, and at least 5 people out front. And it's a small restaurant. It's like physically a small space.
That is really interesting that you're so many people still, because I thought that you have a team of 11, but then not everyone is always working. So there are some that are coming in and out. But you're actually 11 people on any given night?
On busy nights. On a slow night, it'll probably be 6 people, 5 or 6. Yeah, so it's a little bit more penta energy on a slower night.
So yeah, that's why it's going to be very interesting to look at your dynamics as well, because it does shift, it does change. And I wonder if you feel that on the nights where you're just 5 or the nights where you're 11. So what's your experience with that?
Yeah, the dynamics definitely change based off of who's physically there. All but 2 team members I've chosen, right? Like, everyone else has been vetted, hired by either me or my, like the head chef, Salva. And he and I have a very similar, like, vibe that we go for. He's also a 6'2" reflector, so I trust him wholeheartedly to see the big picture and to mirror back the environment that he's in. So, again, I've hired all but 2 people, and I notice when those 2 people are there, the dynamics are very, very, very different, because they don't necessarily vibe with the whole team and the whole group, so that shifts. But also, team to team, right? My bartenders change twice a week. So I have one who's 5 days a week, one who's 2 days a week, and then that vibe changes just because they're very different. One's a 6'2" sacral generator, and the other is a 5'1" emotional generator, right? So those are very different vibes. They're both also supervisors. And then my servers change based off of their availability. Most of the time, I have a 3-5 emotional projector on, but then on the weekends, I have my 1-3 emotional manifesting generator and a 2-4 emotional projector on as servers. So yeah, it's just very different vibes for sure.
More or less emotions flowing around as well, not just type-wise, but I can imagine if one of them, of the emotional beings, is not in a good mood, that it can impact the whole team as well.
It can, it does, and there's a lot of openness as well between me and Salva, the head chef, emotionally. So I'm very aware of it, and I think he is too, that we amplify that. So we're pretty chill most of the time. So it's very interesting when an emotional being comes in a heightened emotional state for us to still remember, like, hey, this is not us. And he's really good about leaving, like, physically leaving the space if he needs time or if he's, like, feeling an emotional, like, escalation. So, yeah, it's really interesting to see that all take place and happen as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the good thing about your chef is that he's a reflector. So he has a more protected aura. So even though he's so open, you would be more impacted than he would when it comes to anything that you are open to, because reflectors are here to sample, they're here to really be here to experience the other. They're often not becoming the other in a lot of ways, so because they have this protective shield. However, reflectors are also prone to be very conditioned. So when a reflector is conditioned, that's where the challenge lies. When a reflector is on his deconditioning journey, and that doesn't have to be through human design, we always say that on here, but I feel like it's also always important that human design is one path, and you can work on yourself and decondition yourself through many, many, many other ways. You can do a lot of self-reflection through many different techniques as well, through journaling or mindfulness or things like that. You can meditate, you can do yoga, you can also do kickboxing if you like. But it's really about understanding what is right and what feels good to you and following your intuition to make those choices. And human design helps you to understand what your intuition is, how to navigate the world according to your type and your strategy. That's how it helps. But some people have been able to get there without using human design, but with using other of these tools. So let's just take a look at some individuals in your team. And there are a lot of people, of course. So as I said, when we're looking at large group dynamics, we would usually have a different kind of program, a different kind of showing this, because there's a lot of calculation that goes into that. So it's what we're doing it by looking at it from an individual perspective, and that's not necessarily the right approach, because when we're coming to the WA or the OC16, it becomes super complex. I'm going to show you some images before we actually jump into that, just to show you the complexity of all of this. Here we're looking at the Penta energy. So remember those 6 channels that are running from the throat. So imagine the throat is up here. Then we have 2 gates connecting the G center, which is this upside down or this diamond shaped square. And then we have those 3 channels going all the way down to the root, which is down here. And this is just a visual representation. When you're adding 5 people to the Biomechanics software, then you will see this. Because I don't necessarily work with this type of setup yet, I'm going to dive deeper, more and more into this subject now from 2025 onwards, actually. So this is actually a really great start to this subject, because I'm going to start working more in the business field. So only then am I going to actually purchase this, because it costs 200 euros a year to get this program. And at the moment, I love my one-on-one work. I love my relationship work, but I don't necessarily do full families or business related things yet. And that's why we decided, okay, we're not going to invest this money right now, but in the future, we will probably do another episode with the software where we can actually add the whole team to this platform. So this is the Penta that you see here. But when we're looking at the WA or the OC16, we look at these channels here. If you're not watching, we're looking at 4521, 2551, 214, 596, 360, and 2750. These are the main channels that we're going to be looking at when it comes to manager positions or even alpha people. And we're even looking at all other 64 gates. They do play a role into all of that, into the whole WA dynamics. The reason why the WA becomes so complex as well is because you can also additionally look at these dynamics over here. So here is what I showed you at the beginning, the Penta, and you can see that this team is lacking 2 elements. It doesn't mean that this team doesn't work, but it means that this team is missing certain elements and that this team can still expand and grow. So they will have to, at some point, fill these positions. The other thing that we're looking at as well is the lines. And here we can see that line 1 is missing. So there is not enough depth to what they are working on, what they are creating in this company. They are not going into detail enough. Another element that becomes important as well is how do people rub each other the right or the wrong way? That's maybe not the accurate form in a business dynamics to say it that way, but that's what just came to my mind. So here you can
That's
see...
how you get HR called on you.
Exactly. If it's part of the team. But yes, exactly. So here you can see different types of individuals who are either improving the dynamic and supporting the other people in the team, or the rest of the team will see them a nuisance in some way. So sometimes you will have this one person that annoys everyone and you don't really understand why, but that's just how it is. This is going to explain why that is, what you can do about it, and also how to balance these dynamics out. It doesn't mean you have to fire anyone, but it really is extremely helpful to understand that and to have this as a blueprint from a human design perspective. It's invaluable to have this knowledge, and it's going to be so helpful instead of having therapy sessions that are going to last, I don't know how many hours, but this can give you exact and very quick insights into where the challenges reside in the team. So for today, we decided to only stick to how Celestina also set up the team. So this is looking at it from the individual, but also from the Penta perspective. You can also look at it with compromising channels or electromagnetic channels. So there are many different ways that you can still work with this knowledge, but it's not going to be complete until you work with the Penta dynamic or the OC16. But for today, we're only sticking to this kind of insight. To get this whole thing started, let's take a look at the head of this team, which is Celestina, and also the individual who created most of the team, as you've heard, except for 2 people. And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you went about gathering this team.
I experienced this a little bit in my own business pre-coming to this restaurant, of hosting spaces, like roundtable spaces, where I just trusted my intuition that the right people would come in and that they would vibe in the moment. And every time, granted they were Penta spaces, but every time it was such a beautiful environment where people genuinely felt open to share and open to learning from each other. So I think inherently this is just a skill set of mine. I call this my superpower, right? Like being able to bring people together and then give them the resources that they need to succeed. It genuinely is my superpower. So it's really cool to be able to use it and see it in a large scale team. Even though I'm not going to lie, the job is very stressful, the only reason I stay is because of this amazing team. So I think that says something about the really cool humans that if you are, like, if you're good at this, like, the cool humans that you can bring together in a space who can work cohesively and not just like work together, but like also have fun together. Like that's huge. If we're looking at the WA, if you will, my only channel is a significant part of the WA. I'm the only person on my team that has the 4521 channel, and granted, half of it is conscious, half of it is unconscious, so I don't really always have access to it. But it's such an important role that I think makes me the leader of this team, and I genuinely believe that it wouldn't be as solid as it is without me. And I know that sounds haughty. I like those are the vibes that I feel. And again, I know that sounds haughty, but I'm really not trying to come at it from like an ego, like, God, an ego perspective. And I'm talking about the ego, but like I'm really not trying to come at this with ego.
Well, there's also such a thing as a healthy ego. No, but seriously though, this is actually accurate. So in the WA or OC16, this channel is about being the alpha as well, because you are the voice of everyone. This is the person that is the alpha, the leader, the person that can share whatever the WA wants, whatever the WA needs, especially. I mean, you're here to gather the resources, to build teams as well. You have a lot of leadership in your chart. So it is for sure the right way to go about this. You also still have a few Penta elements, but you don't have any channels in the Penta. So while you can work in small groups, I think the element that really works well for you is to have a larger group, but still you're moving from, you are capable to move from smaller groups, bringing them together into a large group. So that's how I would see it. And also the way that you were explaining it, when everyone is coming together, you have the 13th gate in your Saturn, 13.6 and 13.2. And that is providing you with this, people just tell you things, secret things. You also have the 15th gate.
Really comes out when I'm with you too.
Yeah. You also have the 15th gate and the 14th gate. So the 14th gate, the 14.2 channel is a very, very important one when it comes to direction of the team. If that channel is not there in a Penta, the team isn't going anywhere. So that really is one of the most important parts in the Penta and needs to be there to move the team forward, to have the drive to move forward. Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay, cool. I'm happy that you logically figured out my haughtiness. I appreciate that. So I don't look like I'm just like an egomaniac kind of crazy up in here. Appreciate it. Thank you. The ones that you pointed out are all, I mean, granted, I don't have the full channels, but they're all gates that are in the WA. So I think that that's also really important to note, right? The 14, the 3, and the 6 are all part of the WA. Well, portions of it. So I think that it's interesting. Let's go to S. He is our head chef, and truthfully, one of the best leaders, like co-leaders, I could ever ask for. He also brings some WA energy into the mix, but I think, oh yeah, there you go, that's us together, hey yo. I think the biggest thing that I see with S's profile is just the ability to really understand the environment, and if for any reason he's unhappy, he's angry, he's frustrated, then I know something is off and something needs to be changed. And 90% of the time, it's something that I have to communicate to someone higher because he's feeling that frustration. And this harks back to the 4521 of like really being the mouthpiece for this team. And just within this last week, I really had the aha moment to like lean into my left angle cross, which is confrontation. And for the longest time, I've avoided confrontation in my life. But now I understand that it's not fighting confrontation. It's having to confront something that can be uncomfortable within the right timing. And the timing piece of it is essential for any movement to happen. It's been really interesting to see that, but also to get the reflections from this amazing human to really see what needs to be said and to vocalize those needs of the group as well has been tremendous. And truthfully, I don't think I could do this without him, which is huge.
Yeah, that's very interesting, especially your last statement that you feel like you need him to do this. He has a lot of Penta energy actually without having channels, but he does have a lot of that energy. Together you complete the 515 channel, which is the channel of rhythm. It can, when those two gates come together as an electromagnetic, it can shift the routines and habits of one another, especially the fifth gate can be impacted by that. So in that case, S can be impacted in his routines, but because you don't spend all day together, you don't impact each other that much. And as well in the Penta energy, so in the business energy, this becomes a very, very different thing. So that's where you can see that it's challenging to do one-on-one when you're actually working in a team, because that's when this becomes very beneficial and very helpful. If both are reflected, if both are aware of their own energies, then this is a super helpful channel and connection to have. But yeah, he himself brings the 7th gate, the 1st, the 46th, the 5th, and the 14th as well. So the only one that you both share is the 14th gate. And he does have as well some Wa energy, the 25th, that he also adds to your team, the 27, and you complete the 360 channel together. So I found that I can see why he's such a support for you as well, because he does have the 7th gate, which is part of being a leader when he's being called to be a leader. But reflectors, on the other hand, are really more here to work in larger groups, which is also very interesting when considering that you are a team of 11.
Yeah, most definitely. It's just interesting seeing him in the role that he's in, because he's so passionate about like the pizza making process. His incarnation cross really shows. So if you guys are watching this, it's the incarnation cross, the left angle cross of education. And it really shows like the passion when he finds someone who is excited about learning, the passion, the glow, the excitement piece, the surprise, if you will, is just really cool to witness. But also, it's wild to me. I mean, granted, if you look at the chart, there's a lot of activity in the sacral without his sacral being defined. So I think that that's very interesting, because I don't know how he does it for like a 4-hour like opening, right? From like 5 to 9. We are slammed on a Friday and Saturday, and homeboy just makes like 300 pizzas like it's no one's business. Granted, I also go on a Friday or Saturday night, like running around, but it's definitely the energy of the team that sustains us, I think. Because after a shift, he and I just like go outside to our separate corners and just like disconnect, like while the team like wraps up. So I think that's a very healthy coping mechanism. It's just really interesting that both of us can just go for 4 hours and then just collapse afterwards.
Absolutely. I love always getting these real life feedbacks when it comes to human design. And yeah, I mean, you together define the sacral a lot. You don't just define it through 2 or 1 channel. You do it through 3 channels, 4 channels actually, because there's also the 3410. So there's a lot of sacral activation. So even you two in a team can have this immense energy. You have all 4 motors defined as well. So yeah, not really surprised, just it's also good that you guys take space from one another after the shift, or just that you're not sitting on top of one another all day every day, because that would be very exhausting at some point.
it's a really cool dynamic, and I'm so grateful to experience it because I think it's really unique. Next up, my partner in crime, L. I know I always say I don't understand five lines, but this human has genuinely helped me understand five lines better, which I think is really cool. So, L is a 5-1 emotional generator, my lead bartender, and truthfully, actually, no, I didn't hire him. That's so funny. So, it was maybe his fourth shift when I did a trial shift as a manager, and he was the only person who could give me details on like what the side work was, like what their processes were. And he had only been there for 4 shifts. And I was like, okay, this kid's got something. And then he told me he was a bartender. I'm like, why am I using you as a server? So it was a whole thing. He has a lot of G center activation with the 214 channel, the 360, as well as the 25th gate. He and I together, he was really the impetus. The vibe that he and I brought together was really the impetus for the team that I built. And it's really interesting to feel that and say that, but I understand his emotional waves. I actually have more activation in my solar plexus than he does, but I feel his emotional waves very intensely. And it's just really interesting to see the vibe that he and I both bring. The three of us, so me, S, and L, are the OGs of this team who truly built off and built upon like from this. Actually, S was the one who suggested that I make L like a full-time bartender. And you best believe I had no question there, and I was immediately like, "Oh my God, yes, you see something I don't. 100% I'm gonna bring this guy on as a full-time bartender." The nuances that come from these energies can be really insightful, right? So also with L, if you notice, there's only one unconscious gate in his spleen, and there's so much intuition from him that I don't necessarily see. And granted, like my spleen is wide open as well, but he gets a lot more intuition from the environment and from those around us on the team than I do. And I find that so helpful and so insightful in making decisions.
Very interesting, especially the spleen element that you're recognizing that he's got a lot of insights into how everyone is feeling, what the situation with everyone. The spleen is really the place where if it's undefined or open in some people's cases, that you're able to pick up on how others feel, the health of others. It is everywhere that you're open, that's where you can really learn a lot. This is where your wisdom can be built up if you choose to. And this is also the people that you often pull into your life. So as I can see, he has an open ego and an undefined throat, and you are completing those two elements in him. Like you're adding that energy to his dynamic, so he can learn a lot from you in these aspects. There's a lot of wisdom to learn from you in these two aspects of willpower, but also of communication, manifesting things, the material elements in life. So this is really what he can learn from this whole situation. But yeah, the undefined spleen gives him a lot of insights into everyone around him as well. What I find very interesting in his chart, he has a lot of individual energy. So he has the left angle cross of revolution, which is, you can see the 4th gate, the 49th gate, the 8th gate, and the 14th gate. So it's individual, it's also collective in some elements, and it's tribal in the 49th gate. So with him having the 63 and the 4th, he is a very detail-oriented, logical person, but he also has this inner knowing, these insights that are coming through him He's got a defined head, of course, and a defined ajna, but he has this wide gap, like wide split between his throat and his G center. That's where other people in the team can provide him the voice to speak. You can potentially also do that. You're still not providing connection to his ajna, but probably other people in the team do in some way, that he can speak about his thoughts, and he can also speak about his, well, actually coming from the emotional solar plexus, going through the root, going through the sacral, and going up to the G center, and then through the root. That's also an option of how he can speak about his emotions as well. But his voice would be more about the pressures that he's feeling inside of him, the adrenaline, the drive coming from this individual stream going up to the throat. I wonder who has the first gate here in your group, because that would really be very interesting to hear conversations if someone has the first and the 23rd in your group. So that would provide some very interesting conversations.
There is one person who has the 23rd, and I know for a fact that like they hung out after work and then just like verbal diarrhea on each other. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine. And this is the genius to freak connection, so he's got the full stream then.
And those same two have the 1333 together as well. So it was just all of the verbal diarrhea.
Absolutely.
What's interesting to note about him is that even though there's the head ajna connection, he's a quad right. And lists are hard. Lists are very challenging. It's like it's a strain between wanting to take accountability for things and then also just being like everywhere all the time.
I mean, the 63 is unconsciously defined, so the logical element is there inside of him. It's also a very important part with the 4th gate in his earth, so it's a grounding element for him. But yeah, having quad right additionally to that, his 63 being defined by his unconscious moon, he may not be as aware as the 6124 channel that is defined in his chart, which is defined by his Venus in conscious, his Mars unconscious, his Saturn in both conscious and unconscious, which is a heavy definition. But
the other note, and then we'll wrap this one up, is with the 5 line, he was gone for 3 weeks, like on holiday, and I was like, oh my God, the vibe is so different. And I know the 5 line is a projected line, but damn, like savior vibes hardcore. Like I understand the potential addiction to a 5 line that people get. I kind of get it. But he's also just such a vital member of the team. So it's just so interesting. And not that like he can do no wrong, but it's a very interesting vibe that he brings to the team.
Fifth line can be very intriguing, and they're also, I mean, they're there to network. So him as a bartender makes a lot of sense because they love to talk to strangers and get to know strangers, and that's what they're there for.
Quite charismatic. Okay, on to my lead server. This was my first amazing hire. I made 3 really poor hires before her. She was my first amazing hire. Let's go to P. So she's a 1-3 emotional manifesting generator. Her emotions are super in check though. Doesn't bring like emotional waves into the mix. She's a triple split though, which I think is really interesting. Being the only emotional generator front of house, every time I have guests come up after like she's been their server, they're like, she is the sweetest. She felt like the warmest hug. She's amazing. And literally every time she serves a table, like that's the response that I get. And now she's been there for like 9-ish months, since like middle of February. and she has regulars, and the regulars are stoked to see her. She's also the strongest member of the front of house team by far. She's been gone on holiday for a couple of weeks, and it is evident that without her, it's a struggle. It is absolutely evident. I've seen the difference between a generator and a manifesting generator. I have several generators on my team, and even they are like, when is P coming back? Because the vibe is totally different. She can do the job of 2 people. And like, it is wild, the difference. I never have to worry when she's there.
Yeah, as a manifesting generator, you can multitask. Often you can multitask more easily than a generator. They're here to multitask, to have several different things at the same time going on. And generators are often less prone to do that, but this is a very general thing that we're saying here. Always remember that when we're talking about type, this is like the tip of the iceberg. You need to look at the full picture of everything else as well in the chart to give exact details, but I can see how that resonates with her. Additionally, I also wanted to mention one more thing regarding L, because he has both a channel in the Penta as well as in the OC16 or the WA. So he is someone that would be recognized for certain aspects in both of these things. One is for the drive that he's bringing to the group, the moving forward, the going into a direction with the group, but also the innovation. So this is something that I just wanted to mention to maybe keep in mind when you're working with him, to have him work on innovative ideas for the restaurant as well, if you want to add that. P, on the other hand, has another channel in the Penta. So if you're not watching, she's got the 4629 channel, and she's got a few gates in the OC16 dynamic. However, she doesn't have a channel in the OC16 dynamic. When we're just looking at the channels, she will be more recognized in smaller teams, which is fascinating because she's a server. So she moves from small groups to small groups while still being part of the team. So she's recognized for her gates, for certain gates, and also for like all 64 gates are recognized in the large organization. In your full group dynamic, in your large group dynamic, she's recognized for all elements, but she is stronger in small groups as a server. This makes perfect sense because she is someone that goes from table to table, small groups to small groups, joins the large group, and this is again as well a great thing for a triple split. So she's really someone to have this energy to move from place to place, small group to small group, and to have her splits bridged by these small groups.
Fun fact about P, she had another job that she had just started maybe like 3 or 4 weeks before I hired her, and she was like, I'm going to quit that one and come here because I really like your vibe. And I'm pretty sure I bridge a lot of her splits, which is really cool.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think you have the third gate, right? Yeah, you bridge one split, and yeah, you bridge the other split as well, I think, maybe. Yep, you do, but through the ego. So you have the 40th gate and you have the 45th gate. So you are bridging her split, not in the head. No. But everything else comes together.
Yeah, it's a really unique dynamic for sure.
And you give her the willpower.
Give everyone the willpower, man. Everyone's sucking my willpower.
You're sucking other things. That came out wrong.
Ew.
You're borrowing other energies as well. Cool.
So good.
Yep. That's
Happy we recorded that. Let's go to J.
J, yeah, J sounds good.
Very good. He is a 6'2" sacral generator. What I find most interesting about this dude is his cognitive intake, reasoning, vocalization abilities, because I do not have that. And it's really freaking cool to see. One of the supervisors, one of the bartenders, but the main thing that I use him for on a Friday and Saturday night is working the Expediter station or the pass. If you guys have never worked in hospitality before, that means the person who works with the tickets, communicates to the kitchen, asks them like, where is this? This needs to go out with this, brings stuff to the table, and organizes all of the takeaway. And he is a machine at this. He's introduced new processes and procedures that I could have never thought of. And it's really cool to see all of that come together. So, yeah, he's bringing some 214 and half of the 360 to the party. And there's a lot of individual energy, but the teamwork that he brings in, like, to the group dynamic is also really cool. What fascinates me most about this dude, though, is his incarnation cross being the left angle cross of masks. It's definitely taken a while to get past the initial shell, I think, and like get him to open up a little bit. But now it's been probably like 7 months. Wow, these people have been here a while. Now it's been like 7 months, and I'm finally like unearthing some more layers, and that's been really, really cool to see.
I mean, I know he doesn't have the 33, but have J and L had conversations? Because this would just, it's crazy. They have so much individual energy. Are those the ones? Because that's crazy.
Yeah, they work the same shifts. So, yeah. Yeah, dude, all of the 214 energy.
Lots of energy, lots of drive. So another thing that we wanted to mention as well when it comes to teams was that there are certain people that will put your gates in detriment and other people that will put them in exaltation. And what that means is some people see it as positive and negative, but it's actually more this or that, as Ra puts it. It's just a different kind of quality in your gate. And we're not really getting into these elements, but we probably should do that more. But I see so much of these exaltations and detriments in this chart that I wanted to point that out, that this can also be something that is in your own chart, of course. But then when you put a team together, people can put each other into detriment or into exaltation or even into a juxtaposition. So that would mean that it looks like a star. So it's both fixed up or downwards in both ways. And in a team dynamic, that can mean that people are bringing others down or lifting others up in certain ways. So yes, this sounds again like positive and negative, but it's just a different way that your energy shows up in the team. And it's really important to understand that when it comes to team building and team management. And this is again where the software comes in. You would need a software to add Penta energies and also to add OC16 energies, because it does play a role. It does make a difference. And it explains a lot of why some people get along, others don't, and how you're different with certain people. Yes, there can be electromagnetics, there can be dominance channels, there can be friendship channels and things like that, but exalting and detrimenting a gate, it makes a difference as well. J being a split definition, open ego, everything else is undefined except for sacral, G center, throat, ajna, and head center. This is where you can see the difference between having your ajna and head connected to your throat and not having it connected to your throat, like L, for example. L has this wide split that we talked about. He doesn't have the throat defined, whereas J only needs one gate out of the 3 gates coming out of his G center to bridge that split, or even one gate coming out of the throat, which is the 20th gate, which would connect his split as well. So there are many ways that he can become a single definition, especially in a team of 11. And he has a lot of Penta energy as well again. So I find it fascinating how many 214s you have in your team, really bringing that drive towards,
The 2 people who have 214s are also the 2 supervisors. That's hilarious.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I made them supervisors before I even knew that. Just because I felt it. I felt like they had the responsibility to be able to do so. Wow, energy, man. How cool is that?
Yeah, see, that's another point proven regarding you don't need to know human design, you just have to be very in tune with yourself.
Yeah, man.
So guys, we've been going at this for quite some time, and we've decided to break this episode up into 2 so that if you don't have a defined ego, you may still want to listen to the second part in the future. So feel free to tune in to next episode. This is it for today. We would love to have you here again for the next episode. If you're interested, especially in a business environment, how to use human design, this is a very interesting. Thank you for listening.
Until next week. Ciao.
Hardcore, the Human Design Podcast. I'm going to split this into 2 because this is way too long. So we still need to kind of create an intro. I feel like this is way too long. So let's just, no, you don't feel like that?
I think we should. That was an aggressively long episode.
Oh my God. Halfway through, I was like, oh my God, can we just split this? So now we're going to do this in post. So.
No, dude, we both have a fucking defined ass ego, and we're like, we're just gonna do it. It's gonna be fine.
It's gonna be okay. We're dying. I'm sweating like crazy. It's so hot in here.
Dude, my butt cheeks are so warm.
We're still recording. Your pale butt cheeks.
Put this in the bloopers. It'll be great. My pale ass butt cheeks.